since early June, so I appreciate everyone calling in and kind of being here for today. This will be recorded and put on txwaterpolo.com. That is James Smith's side, who is helping me out today. And James is going to be monitoring the chat feature and letting everyone in. Today's speaker is going to be Chris Cullen from Denton ISD and Thunder Water Polo. Today, he's going to be talking about season planning and practice planning. And if I can just intro him a little bit, Chris is one of the most fascinating people I've met, and I've known him for a long time now. And he didn't really start playing or coaching until he was 31 years old. And I would trust him with any kid now. He's one of the best coaches in the country. He's been doing this for about 20 years now. But he's one of those coaches that started with only the 20-30 minute practice at the end of the day. But so, I mean, he's come a long, long way. He's learned. And I think he's going to be a great speaker for today's kind of session. So I'm going to throw it over to Chris. Chris, does anybody have any questions? Again, this is an open forum, guys. So if you have questions, please ask. If you have some comments, please share. This is where we want it. This is a sharing space. So Chris, it's all you.
Well, welcome everyone. Just a little bit about myself, because I was a swimming coach, and I swam all through high school. I was the manager at SMU and trainer. I majored in PE, and so I knew sports and knew all those things. About 9 years after I started at UNT, somebody approached me, Frank Connor. You know, he's in the Water Polo Hall of Fame and with Dallas Water Polo, and said, "Do you guys, for Denton High School, do y'all want to play water polo?" And I'm like, "Sure, sounds like fun." Well, the swim season, in my opinion, is too long already, so we were looking to do something to make it, keep them engaged. And so I hate being really bad. I mean, the first year I lost every game, but we were playing St. Mark's and Richardson that had been playing for a year or two, and so we got killed every game, and so I hated losing. And so I would start buying ASCA books. I would buy coaching manuals, anything that I could find. Now the resources are much easier. You got YouTube, you can watch professional games. And so 20 years ago, we didn't have that. I would go buy, I think I still have VHS tapes of Monty Niskowski in my file cabinet at the pool. And so I just loved sports. And so I started playing myself. And so I just always take the opportunity. I started ODP because I wanted to learn. And I still do ODP because I want to learn. I want to go be around coaches better than me and go ask questions and watch and observe. So that's a little bit about myself. So I don't have this, I've been coaching for 20 years and I just strive to get better. And so that's I've learned a ton. That's the only positive of the whole COVID thing, is the sharing of ideas that we have with each other, that I've been able to tap in and, spend time listening to Jack Coker, some of the best coaches in the world, and Brian Flax and all these other guys. So the more you look, the more resources there are going to be. So anyway, so that's a little bit about myself. So feel free to ask questions. I come from a place of knowing zero, and literally Joe was not kidding. So the first year we played water polo, we played 15-20 minutes after swim practice, and I had a ball for about 20 kids, and we would pass around in circles. Then we'd get in front of the goal and throw the ball in the goal. And that was all I knew to do. I would just, and so that's my starting point. So there are no dumb questions or anything, just ask anything. I'll be fine to. So anyway, so I'll just share my screen a little bit about my practice planning and things. So I kind of have some overviews. So let's see. All right.
Hey, Chris, before we go on, just one slight administrative note, which is that Joe's account is unlimited, but mine is not. And so we're in unexplored territory here. It's possible we'll have to cut things short after 40 minutes because that's the extent of my account. So I just want to let everybody know that beforehand.
I hope it should be good because of, like Joe started the meeting. So hopefully.
Yeah, so I think so too, but yeah.
All right. So practice season planning, just kind of an overview. So, season planning. So things that I like to consider, sorry, let me put myself in the little box so I can see somebody at least talking. Factors to consider. So the length of your season. So, high school is different than club. So if you're talking about an 8-week season, a 12-week season, those are things that are going to talk about your season planning. How many practices do you have a week? What are you working with? And so that's going to adjust how you plan your season. The length of each practice. Are you working 2 hours, an hour and 45 minutes? Do you have multiple groups? And what's your goal for the season? So, like when you first start, maybe your team's not great and your goal is to win 2 games or one. Maybe your goal is to just make improvements, or maybe your goal is to win the state championship or go to platinum at JOs. So all those things in your season planning, they're going to affect how you're going to plan your season. And so I talked about the level of players. So do you have, is it a very homogeneous group? Do you have beginners and advanced all in the same one? Sometimes there's high school groups where you have kids who've been to national team selection camps, and then the kid right next to them is just beginning. And so that's going to affect how you plan your season. To me, I think the first thing I always do is make a calendar. So I just say, okay, my last game is ideally going to be here, state championship, and I'm going to work backwards from there and kind of say, okay, when is my start date, and where do I want to be at these kind of checkpoints? Like at this tournament 4 weeks in, I want to be able to, in my mind, I want to be able to be here. And like in terms of skills and what we're working on, 6 weeks in, I want to be here at the championship right before the regional championship or the state championships. I want to be here. So those to me are the most important things. Just talk about making your calendar. To me, I break the season into 3. I'm going over these quickly, so feel free to holler at anything. But Joe wanted kind of an overview of everything, and so I'll go into more details. I kind of go from large to small, so big season down to daily. To me, early season, I focus on skills and conditioning. And when I say conditioning, most of the time, I'm not doing just straight swimming. Like they just come off a swim season. We're doing conditioning building through skills. And so, like their legs, and, I do focus a little bit on legs early season, but it's not like 30 minutes. So in the skill work we do will incorporate some level of conditioning. And so trying to go faster and play harder, et cetera, early in the season. Mid-season, I still focus on those skills, but then I start to try to apply the skills that they've learned and how you play into your tactics. So what are you going to do? What kind of offense are you running? What kind of defense are you running? So how they can blend the skills that they've learned and then merge them into what you're trying to accomplish as a team, the tactical side of things. And then finally at the championship, I look at the team tactics and I focus on the team tactics in the game situation. So we might start implementing things for a particular opponent. Say if I really need to stop, like I'll be able to attack an M zone that my opponent runs on me. Okay, what can we do? How can we apply those skills and tactics to break that M zone? Or is this team susceptible to a press and counter? So, and then talk a little bit more about game situations. Okay, what are we doing if we're down by a goal, 1 minute left? What kind of things are we running? So to me, that's the championship season. Those just brief overview. So early season. And like I talked about skills and conditioning, I like to focus on corrections in terms of, we do lots of early in the season, big groups. Say in my situation, we've got a 10-lane pool, probably about, 25 yards by 25 meters. And we've got probably 6 teams in there. If you talk about teams, like last year when we ended, we had 2 varsity teams, boys, 2 varsity girls, and a girls JV and a boys JV between 2 high schools. And so we're limited on space. And so we have to make it work. And so when we warm up, we just adjust things as we need. We're warming up single file in a lane. So every lane's got, this school had 2 lanes. And so you're circle swimming on your warm up, and then you're doing your legs. And so we'll do our conditioning that way. And then our skills will be done in space. And so, okay, if you're doing coming over your hips, so we'll have them out and just, spread out equally, and they're doing the skill work. To me, like this is for all practices, not just early season. I just have to have a focus or an emphasis for that day, whether it's counterattack, center defender, front court defense. And then sometimes you can be even more specific than just front court defense. Maybe I want perimeter pressing. That's the emphasis for the entire practice. And, or, vertical shooting. Those kind of things are in my mind how I kind of prepare for the workout. So my way of running a practice is the warm up, the conditioning, the passing, the shooting, and the scrimmaging all have the same focus. And so you kind of, all the skill work, all the conditioning. So if you're doing center offense, for example, for that day, the warm up. So after you do a little bit of swimming, we'll be doing hips up egg beater, pushing on them so that their legs, and then doing turn spin seals, all sorts of skill work during the warm up. And then the passing drill might be in addition to just regular passing, the kick out passing, left hand, right hand, bring the ball to the right side, kick it out, bring it to the left side, pop it out. The shooting drills, same thing. So we're doing, okay, we build it up. So everything is done based on the center that day. So I have some examples: defensive movements, on the ball, off the ball, center defense. So this is what you can work on, or like your whole emphasis for the day. To me, I don't know, a few years ago when I tried to start focusing on less, you got more done and you're more satisfied with the results. And because instead of trying to jam, say, oh, you need to be able to do this great big skill. Let's break that down into individual skills or individual components of a half court defense. Then once you can break those skills down and fix or correct and build on each individual skill, you'll be able to put it together as a whole. So that's what especially early season, I focus on 1 or 2 skills a day. Maybe it's drive defense, or it's, so for the whole practice, everything is working on turning, reverse pivoting, breaststroke kick, coming over your hips, or maybe it's field blocking. Whatever it is, we work on it that entire day. Okay, and the emphasis there is learning skills, but the conditioning portion to me is important, because if you can do things correct when you're tired, then you're going to be able to do it when you're fresh. And so a lot of times we'll do things, they'll do something high energy and then do some of the skills. So when they're first starting, like the first week, the lower emphasis is on conditioning and just the learning, and then we start implementing the conditioning so they can do the skills while tired. So. Okay, the middle of the season. So I focus on skills and tactics. So to me, the same skills that you do that first couple of weeks can be done at a higher level. I always tell the kids, I'm like, you can do this same skill, forward lunge. You can do it at a 12U level, 14U level, a 16U level, or 18 or college or Olympic level. So when you go watch the Olympic, like Adam Krikorian running practice, they're doing the same skills that you see on those ODP videos or the things, but they're doing them at a level that's the best players in the world. And so that's what I tell these kids to strive to. So don't look at me and roll your eyes and say, what do you mean we're doing forward lunges again? No, that's an important skill. And when you can do it at to me, a varsity level, then we'll do less of it and move on to another skill. So until you show me you can master that skill, then we're going to keep working on it. Then this is when I start talking about when should these skills be done. Okay, so you kind of blend them together and start saying, okay, when is a forward lunge useful? When do you need to come over your hips? What is crashing? What's the situation crashing should be done? Okay, so where in the game should it be done? The recognition, the awareness, should you be doing these things? Okay, so for example, perimeter defense, when should the player press? What's the situation? What's the situation if there's somebody's driving? What's the situation if you're playing what kind of defense are you playing? A high press, playing a 50-50 press? To me, these Coker videos or Coker times, that to me, the analysis that he does, that this week they're talking about X1, or last week it was X1 and X5. What are they doing differently? And I never really had analyzed, well, yeah, X1 and X5 play different than X2 and X4. And then X3. And so to me, if you start putting those tactics in mid-season, when they know the skills, then they can kind of implement them at the right time. So these are just questions, the kind of, example that you're talking to the kids about. So I start to shorten the instructional time in practice and increase the implementation. So they're doing more controlled scrimmaging. So if the emphasis today was perimeter defense, so now when the scrimmaging comes around, we're going to do focus on, that's the whole, the whole day, from warm up, passing, shooting, and now the scrimmaging might be 30 minutes instead of 10, like it was early in the season. So that, I mean, we still always do some sort of playing because they got to have some fun. Because I'm not one of those coaches that says, "Oh, they don't touch the balls for the first 4 weeks." That's me. I mean, because the game's supposed to be fun, so but you can work on skills and work on things and still play in a controlled manner. We may not ever. I mean, I don't think in the 8 weeks they've had before the break, we had never lined up and played. We'd done half court and we'd done lots of controlled stuff, but we had not lined up and played any scrimmaging in those 8 weeks. So, but that's the way I do it. So, but that was also spacing. We didn't have space to do that. Okay, championship season, I focus on those team tactics and game situations. To me, it's always, I've learned this the hard way. Like in my mind, swimming, you got to rest them before the championship season. In water polo, to me, I think you want to go focus on going hard and going fast. You're not conditioning anymore, but still when you do scrimmage, they have to be explosive. They can't be lazy in terms of like resting too much, and they've got to use that energy and be explosive and playing hard and being moving and getting up big to shoot the ball and getting up big to field block. So because I used to 5 6 years ago, we would be resting for the big and we'd hardly do anything, and then they were flat and they come out at the beginning of games, they were moving slow. And so I really started focusing on, playing hard and moving quickly, so that especially to get out so you don't get behind in a game. So, like I talked about the specific for your opponent, say, like Mihai would run an M zone, and so how are you going to break that M zone? Or if they're, what are they doing if you have a weak player that they always post up on? What is your plan if they plan to always post up number 7 or so and so? Okay, so game situations like down by 2 goals. What are we doing at the end of quarters? We doing plays after goal plays. We don't just implement them at the championship season. We started doing them about early in the mid season. So, and then when are you going to do these after goals, and what situation would you want to do it? Our scrimmaging usually would probably talk about, okay, what do you do? We're down by 1 goal. How do we get it? Or we got to kick out with 1 goal. What situation? I don't want to burn a timeout to get the defense to set up. So what are you going to set up, and how are you going to attack that quickly? All right. So now that was macro. Let's look at a little closer weekly planning. To me, this is going to vary from coach to coach. Whatever you like to do is going to be, I like to do counterattack on Monday. So they would go move, get them going, since they had Sunday off, and then you wanted to get them a little tired. So we do counterattack skills on Mondays. And it would change. So early in the week, the very first week, we're not doing counterattack, but so this is maybe mid season. And then I would focus on defense, or front court offense, and then maybe center offense, or you can front court defense, and then games 6-on-5, scrimmaging, controlled scrimmaging, those kind of things. So that, to me, and then within these, the emphasis would not just be front court offense. It would be driving from X3. Maybe that would be the focus from the whole point, or for the whole practice, or for center offense, saying, okay, doing kick out passes so that the perimeter players can catch and shoot. So each one within this would have a specific emphasis. And if I thought after Monday's practice, we did a terrible job, we still need to work on it, Tuesday might be counterattack again. So like if they need to hit things again, I was always flexible to change my plan and say, okay, I didn't like what I saw, we're going to do it again, or we need to expound upon it. Okay, now let's go to an individual practice. So to me, like I talked about, the focus on the specific situation. So a lot of times I will get situations either by watching film. And if you don't watch film, then you probably should, because it's starting to, it's become a lot easier. You can share it with the kids. And I notice a lot of things, because in the heat of the game, you may think it was this problem with your team, and then in actuality, it was something else. And so I tend to focus, take notes. I'm like, okay, we weren't crashing well, or what did we give up? Too much perimeter, a foul outside of 5. So we need to stop fouling on the perimeter. So how do I work on those things? So to me, I'd like to build a progression so that it start off very simple, move to more complex in terms of defense and very much controlling what's going on. So let's look at, for example, defensive crashing on a live entry pass to center. I ask myself, what skills does that player use to work on the defensive crashing on a live entry? Okay, well, coming over their hips, swimming head up, breaststroke kick into a lunge. And so all of those skills are done during warm up and conditioning. And so that's the skill that I want to end result. And this is the first step in the warm up and conditioning. Then for passing, so after we do a little light warm up passing, then maybe we do 3 players, the defender crashing on an entry pass. So you're passing under pressure, the defender's on you, you live entry, they come over their hips and crash and steal the ball. And then they do 3 and switch, or then switch who's the center, who's the perimeter player. So they work on those skills. And during this, you're correcting all of these points here. Are they breaststroke kicking to the lunge? Are they swimming head up? Are they coming over their hips on their shooting? So maybe your center is taking shots. And so what I would do with like this, we'd have 3 lines, each have a ball and a defender on it. So you take the ball, get up big, enter live entry. The center first time takes a shot. Then they come back. Then the next time rotation, then they pop it out for an outside shot. And so then you can build up from defensive crashing to then add once later in the season, well, the defensive crash and then field block on a kick out. And so then you can add a coming over the hips, closing out on the field blocker, and then live entry again. And then you say, okay, do it 3 times. First time center shoots, get another ball. This time it gets kicked out. Third time, and then they shoot. So you can be creative and then just trying to create something in the shooting drills that end up looking like what you want the end result to be. All right, and then your controlled scrimmaging, the ball starts pressed, live entry, defensive crashes. And then so you just, I had a varsity girls and varsity boys and I'm by myself. And so I got 15 good quality players. And so what I could do is when we get to this point, and I had trained them over years now of, okay, there's no horsing around. I can't referee, but this is what you can do. Live ball starts pressed, live entry, defensive crash, play from there. And then when it's over, restart, and then move the ball to a different position and say, okay, you're going to do that for the next 7 minutes. And then I go over and tell the girls, they would go do that for the next 7 minutes. And then I would go back and forth making corrections, not even worried about may not have them call their own fouls and just, focus and say, okay, you need to be going every 15 seconds. Let's, and get the next one. And so they knew it was business-like. They had to move quickly to each one. So, all right. So that's all I kind of had in terms of, but now I do want to talk a few specific things like Joe and I came up with. Key things when you're doing your practice. We both agree transitions are what makes a practice effective. And what do I mean by transitions? So you have your practice plan. How do you move from one to the other? And then how quickly you can do that. So to me, I hated kids sitting around, sitting on balls. Come over here, I'm gonna tell you what to do. I spent time early in the season teaching them what all my terminology, all my drills, all my things meant. In fact, you can even do it in your meeting beforehand, before you practice. Okay, today we're doing crash drill. Remember, so when we get to the scrimmaging, this. And so when you have a 2-hour practice, if you spend 5 minutes, even 2 minutes going from swimming to passing, and then 2 minutes from passing to shooting, and then 2 minutes from passing to get your caps on, and then 2 minutes between each scrimmage drill, then you've lost 15, 20 minutes. And to me, I also think the kids also hear me say this all the time. You are going to play like you practice. So if you're not focused, if you're not moving quickly, if you're sitting on balls, you're doing all this stuff, that stuff drives me and their teammates crazy now. So like they're like, let's go, let's go, let's go. If you have the right attitude, should be work, go, work, 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 and get them moving quickly. So to me, the transitions is critical. And so in terms of like, make sure you analyze, okay, if you're spending 5-6 minutes to throw caps at to people, that's a wasted time. Do it before practice starts, before you get in the water. Okay, here, like I would do things like this. I'd have a list. Okay, you're wearing dark, you're wearing white. These are the scrimmage groups. Post it on the wall. Get a cap before practice starts. You know, things like that have the goals put in by the goalies, or just have a plan to get the goals in the ball. So instead of wasting 15 minutes waiting for the goals to get in, that kind of stuff. Let's see, levels in a practice, brand new kids. So what do I do with brand new kids? You can do the same type of thing. I would focus on more learning how to basically play, still have an emphasis of skill for that day, but still go and put it in the, simplest level. So, we would focus on just defense crashing and just awareness. And so, okay, the beginner kids, you're going to make the 1-2 passes, put the ball in, everybody crash. And so the more you can make it simple, like take away all the complex. And then to me, I would always control it. I would never let it get out of hand in terms of the scrimmaging wouldn't just go on and on. So once somebody made a mistake, I have a big thing, like if somebody steals the ball in the perimeter, hand it right back to them, let's go. And so they know, so they're going to play hard and then steal the ball, hand it back to them. And then so that you keep those reps going. In terms of brand new kids, I do like them to play, and sometimes they have to get into it by playing more games and more situations awareness wise. And so they probably have a little more scrimmaging based on their level to play. Video work. So I mentioned it earlier. If you don't have a parent, everybody has a video camera now. And so if you don't have Huddle, you don't have these other things, I would encourage you to at least get them to record them and watch the games so that you can sit there and take notes. You don't have to do complex stats. In fact, goals and all that stuff isn't what you're looking for. To me, it's where are the mistakes, the defensive breakdowns are coming. Where are they? Where's the other team scoring their goals from? Is it because we can't protect the ball on offense? Because a lot of times I was the same way when I first started. On offense, we couldn't control the ball. The other team stole it from us, countered. It was a 2-on-1, and I'm yelling at the kid, said, "Why didn't you get back to defense?" And it had nothing to do with the kid not getting back to defense. It had to do with his teammate on the other side who couldn't protect the ball, got it stolen, and then created the 2-on-1 the other way. So, it allows you to sit and focus on these things, saying, "Oh, look, yeah, that caused that." And so, Coker talked about, like, a lot of times you're talking the transitions and the things that you can see when you go back and look. So, when and how much to play. To me, playing is dependent on your group and your space. And then to me, I rarely, if we ever during the season just lined up and play, it would be 5 minutes at the end of practice, or it would not be, we are scrimmaging almost every day. So I don't say we're not scrimmaging. I mean, 6 on one side, 6 on the other, but that was also a function of us having 2 courses and 6 teams. And so occasionally with the newer kids, we would kind of have one side doing full court for 5 minutes, while the other side, I have 3 goals doing half court. So we kind of, I hate kids sitting out too. I don't like kids doing nothing. And so we would, talk about that in transitions as well, is have them actively doing something. Instead of, ideally you want 4 to 6 kids on a goal. If that's not realistic, give the kids, maybe have stations. Say, if you have those rebounders that are $100 and they can go over and, do 20 on left, 20 on right, and then rotate, or 2 people passing between a rebounder, or you can just be creative to use your space. So like when you're standing there as a coach making corrections, that you have, 1 kid doing something and 12 kids waiting. That's, not the best use of your time. So was there a chat question? Somebody? I don't know. Stop share. All right. So there it is. All right. Oops. I hit the wrong one. So anybody have any?
It was more giving you credit for a good point from Coach Davidson. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. So anybody have any questions or comments or like specifics you want to mention? I mean, I'm not saying I just do things a certain way that it has been worked for me. And so I can share anything anybody wants to, any specific skills that you want to work on to me, or how you write a practice for certain, issues. To me, I've just kind of figured things out as I've gone, and those kind of things. So
I'm curious from you and from maybe others as well about planning for a season strategically. It's not even really a season. Let's say planning for a year. And so what I mean is your high school season here is 8-9 weeks, and then the club season starts. So you can consider those two different seasons, except you have a lot of athletes who are overlapping. And so you, Chris, have a bunch of players that you work with essentially all year long. And whether that comes into play when you're doing planning, because I suspect when you start your high school season, you have to coach up a bunch of younger guys that don't know what they're doing. But during the club season, you have this cohort that you can depend upon.
Right. I mean, I think the major adjustment for high school is I encourage my good players to mix, like it's mandatory, like early in the season, 3 club kids can't be passing together. They've got to be with a newer kid and teach them. And because if you don't let them figure out that if you're only as strong as your weakest player. So if you have one player over there that's always going to get posted up, and instead of just rolling your eyes and say, oh, he stinks, blah, 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 like work with them at practice. You guys are good. Help that player so that they say, oh, so-and-so on the other team is going to do this to you. Now for club, you have a higher level. So you have the best kids from all the different high schools around. So your goal is going to be a little different. So your season planning is going to, for high school, you're always trying to win that state championship or win regionals or make the regional tournament, or make state, whatever your goal is. And so you have that unified group. Whereas, for club, we try to be, our goal is to try to finish as high as we can at JOs, but that's, we can't advance scout. We don't know every team we're going to play and those kind of things. So it's totally different. So you just have to focus on everybody building his skills as many positions as you can. To me, as club, that's when I look at club season planning, you just want to have everybody try to improve their skills at every position so that they can, also it sells themselves to college too. If you have a good club player that can play perimeter, center, defender, do a little of everything, then they're more likely to be successful in college. So I hope that helps. Questions wise. So.
Yeah, hey Chris, this is Colby. So I got a question,
Sure.
about examples or moving from and kind of demonstrating tactics in a practice. Is it explanation? Do you have access or a whiteboard, or do you take a couple of players to demonstrate? It's always a struggle for us, right? We're saying, okay, let's go through these specific tactics, and for in the club kids, they know what's going on. It's at a certain age level, but with the younger kids, you're trying to demonstrate.
Sure.
And we don't have a whiteboard, and so it's always a struggle.
Right.
We pull a couple of the ODP kids and they show them, but how do you get over that or through that kind of transition from concept to action, especially for kids that are maybe 14 years?
Sure. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll put them on the ground, just stand them out on the deck and say, okay, so what do I mean by a 32 pick? So 3, this is you standing right here. You can grab their shoulders and, well, not grab, but, move them like you do on a basketball court. So, we always have that disadvantage in swimming because we're not in the water with them.
Right.
And so, a lot of times we'll just put them on the deck and then just say, even when they're brand new, all right, this is position 1, this is 2, this is 3. And then this player stands there and I put caps on them. And so they know I'm offense, I'm defense. So if this player swims at them, and you kind of can set up that situation. And, especially if you have multiple groups in club practice at once, the experienced one, so you can go do it in the water. The inexperienced you can have one of the coaches run through that on the deck and then say, okay, see what it looks like here. Now let's walk over to the pool and see, they're my good 14Us doing it. say, look, oh, there's one there. And you just kind of point out. So in addition, I mean, we have a rolling chalkboard that we use some, but sometimes we will, there's nothing better to me than their bodies actually being in the spots in front. In fact, we have more goals than we need. Well, we have like 6 or 8 goals in a little pool. And so, because I'll stack them end to end to end to end just to get shooting stations. And so sometimes for club, you just have that extra goal sitting out. And so they actually have the visual representation of the goal sitting there too. So.
Okay, good. Thank you. Very helpful.
Sure. To me, I like the individual skills. I watch those ODP things. I've seen them hundreds of times, and I still watch them again. And then then I start looking for the next step. Okay, what is his right leg doing? What is his left leg doing? Because, it's just like any skill, like I talked about, you can do it at the beginner level or the advanced level. So to me as a coach, I'm like, the first time I watched it, I'm at the beginner. And now the next time I watch it and I start so I can make corrections to those kids saying, okay, your left leg's doing this or your right leg. So I should be able to, in my mind, make corrections to any kid at some level, whether they've been playing for 5 years or for 5 minutes. So to make appropriate level corrections and to see what the best players in the world do over and over, like stop it, pause, go back, to me, that's one of the things I do for skill correction. So.
Chris, do you anticipate any changes to the way that you plan for your high school seasons once it shifts to the fall?
I do. I've been thinking about that quite a bit actually, because, it actually will be could be quite a diversity of groups, because you have those kids that play summer. Well, it depends also your club situation. Is your club going to be a blended club where it's like all different high schools? Whereas a lot of times in California and other places, it's Oaks Christian Pride is mostly all Oaks Christian's kids. And so is it summer season is preseason for their high school season. So they go right into it. And so I think for the biggest thing for Texas is going to be that taking those kids that have just played all summer with those kids who haven't done anything since last February, because that's when high school swim season was over, and then get them up to speed. And so, yeah, that to me is going to be the challenging part. And plus it's going to also be very compressed. So I haven't seen officials, but I think August 1st through, like the playoffs will probably start October 1st. Yeah. And so that means you got 8 weeks, then plus 3 weeks of playoffs to get everything done. And so it's going to take some planning. I don't know what are we UIL going to allow anything for the summer for those kids who don't play club? Or are they going to just strength conditioning kind of thing? We'll see. So it's going to be unique. So. Any other thoughts? I think now that I think about it too, it's the UIL. We may have to do a little more swimming right at the beginning, because that's the hard thing too. With you got 8 weeks, they're not in swimming shape. So it's going to be essential that you tell those kids to play over the summer, or at least swim over the summer, because you start August 1st and you got to be ready to go in 2 to 3 weeks playing your district games that qualify you for the playoffs. And it's going to be tough. So.
Well, I do wonder, because this is approaching something that resembles the California season. Like you said, maybe in the past, your players after the summer would be pretty much out of shape. But at least in theory, given the fall season for high school, and like you said, your top cohort of players who are playing for you during the summer, they might take 2 weeks off after JOs, but in general, they'll be ready to hop back in the pool. That seems encouraging to me, but I don't know if that's the way it's going to play out.
Yeah, for the ones that play club, but everybody's high school has a significant number who don't. I mean, and to be honest, it's like people ask, oh, which team's going to win? Well, show me the teams that have the most club players. So it's the club magic. Not magic, but it's hard work. And so you just start counting up. Well, that team has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 club players and only 1 non-club player. They're probably going to be successful, whereas, that one only has 1, and then they're going to struggle. So.
Is there any difference between the fall and the spring in that regard? Because no matter what time of year the season for high school is, you're going to have newcomers versus club players.
Well, I think the club players will be more prepared. They'll be ready because they'll be just coming off, have played, all spring and summer, because high school water polo is going to end in October, and so they'll probably take a month off and then basically start training for JOs from January on. So will be 7 months of preparation for JOs, and then, like you said, a week or two off. Actually, probably not even 2 weeks, so maybe a week for the boys, and less for the girls. And the girls might even be a half a week before they start up, if we're starting on August 1st. So, but the biggest issue is going to be the ones that don't do anything, like it don't swim during the summer, because in the spring, if they haven't played water polo, at least they're in swimming shape because they just finished off high school swim season.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
So that's the huge the difference in terms of where it's going to be. So.
All right. Anybody else?
Feel free to if you want to email me how I write a practice that looks for a certain thing, I'd be happy to share whatever I have. People share with me, so I'm always up for whatever. So I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I will just do it. I'll share anything I have. So the better we are collectively, the better water polo becomes. So
I'll say that especially for the high school season, that I was out of the game for quite a while, but when I got back into coaching in 2010. I went back to Monty. I mean, Monty Natskowski was a legendary coach where I grew up in Southern California, and he has all these books and videos like Chris was referring to, but he does practice planning or season planning, and that was based on a 12, 13-week season in California, but it's easily adaptable. Mm-hmm. And John Abdu actually also shared the way that he would schedule and plan for his college seasons, which was very useful too. So yeah, maybe there's some sort of form where we could just share if anybody needs any additional input.
Sure.
Hey, Chris, thank you for doing this.
Sure.
One thing I was going to say that I really, your point about the ODP videos and the skills ones. So one thing I started doing is I don't want to say I was secretive, but I just kind of had my plans and we'd show up. But, once we started using Google Drive and stuff like that, I started sharing it with my athletes when I was coaching high school team. And I would link a lot of those, start linking those videos. So that cut down on some of the transition time, especially for the new ones where they'd see these videos, they see how they could look. And it was kind of on the kids. Obviously there would still need to be some demo that they would need, but it was really on a lot of them to be able to understand that. But they would have that reference point that you could always go back and say, go look at this. Go, obviously some of the higher level tactical stuff, you were referencing the picks. Obviously you have to kind of search those out, but just those skill sets were fantastic, and they're a great resource. And the fact that they're available to anybody, you just kind of have to look for them. And I think it's a great point you made about using those. So thank you.
Oh, sure. I think I'm going to incorporate that. I mean, one of the things I've done with the Coker deal is I've seen how to analyze video, just take these professional games and I just spent one day just cutting up these films, and I saw examples of 32 drives and 51 drives, and so now I have these clips on YouTube that I'm going to be able to send to the kids, and they all get on their phone constantly. We have a group message for the team, and so you can say, okay, look, tomorrow we're working on 51 drives, so watch this video and be ready to work on this. And so it's just something for your high school that's probably easier than with your club. But but definitely show them videos. That's what Coker was saying. He has 15 minutes and he'll shoot. I actually have debated saying, big screen TVs are what, $150 now? Get a stand and then just cast it from your phones up to the deal, and you can show them a YouTube clip right there that you've cut up. So to me, I'm going to be able to use a lot more of the video stuff after this COVID thing. So.
As long as you don't have an outdoor pool where it can get stolen and will get stolen. Yeah, because I thought the same thing. Hey, Miguel, I'm curious because Miguel, for those who don't know, is in St. Louis and has a great deal of experience both at high school and with his club. And you heard Chris talking about the model of clubs that you're either sort of high school centric or you're open to all different high schools, whether you're a development program like it was in Southern California where you're just incorporating everybody, or if it was strictly for your high school. So what have your experiences been with those?
For me personally, one of the reasons I did get out of high school is that we are a state sanctioned sport, and there were rules about, working with your own athletes, and it was just getting to be too much. So with all my, with that going on, it just had to be, the club was getting so big, but kids from all over. And so I didn't want to neglect turning kids away and not focus on my high school, or include my high school kids too. So we have kind of gone to that model of more skill set versus tactical stuff, at least in the club side. You know, we're not going to win JOs. We're not going to win these major tournaments. So it's more about developing these athletes and giving them that skill set. So kind of to Chris's point about, you know, we don't really have, you know, our club games, you know, we're a spring season. We used to be fall. So ironically, you guys were just talking about you're going to go to fall. So I have that. I know what that was like versus spring, and certainly the move itself. But you know, our big thing, our big season where we get the most of the games is spring for all the high school teams, which didn't happen this year. So for us to have that time, it's mainly focused on a lot of the skills and a lot of the individual stuff, so we don't have to worry too much about games and stuff like that, where you can take a day, okay, we're going to focus on counter, we're going to focus on center defender, do a lot of station work, etc., without the pressure that we've got to go win games or anything. I don't know if that helps you out or answers the question there, but James.
Yeah, well, I was curious about because the high school experience in Missouri is just different, and whether you did sort of plan holistically for the entire year, or whether you had to, generally speaking, separate your club from your high school season. It sounds like it's the latter.
Yeah, you definitely had to. You would plan. You really did. You know, high school season. You know, kind of what to Chris's point, he talked about is breaking it into three parts. I broke mine into 4. I looked backwards from when the state championship was, where we want to be, what we need to do to get there. Club, it's just more like I said. You know, we're focused on skill set. If we are going to go to JOs, we'd have or a international tournament that Goldenberg runs down in Florida in the winter, because those are our main 2 club seasons, summer and winter. We kind of have some tactical stuff going on for the teams that are going to go there, but for the most part, it's just a lot of skill-based learning. And you guys know how it is in the summer. Kids are gone for a week, and then they're here for a week, then they go 3 weeks of camp, or they have something else, or then they come back, and so that's always a challenge too.
Yeah, you never have the same group there at club practice.
Yeah,
so it's like, sure. Okay, we're doing this after goal play, and then you work 2 days on it, and then the guys after, you're like, what's that? And you're like, you were gone last week to VBS, so exactly. So.
Yeah. I'm curious about that point from just about everybody, which is that the club season, and this is my experience as well, is that you can place a framework around what you can even call it 3 seasons, the winter, spring, and into the summer. But I've found it troublesome to have sort of overarching goals for that entire season. So in other words, your high school season is fairly simple. It's like Miguel says, you're working backwards from in my experience with CIF, before then this is what you're trying to get done by week 8, by week 12, and so on. The club season doesn't really, present itself in the same way.
To me, well, that's why club season's so much less stress. You just focus on the kids, and whereas high school is you wonder, do I put that kid in? I know he's going to get posted up and it cost me a goal. Like, and the stress there, whereas like clubs, you're like, get in there, he posted you up, let's go. Well, you learn from it, let's go, move on. And you don't care if you win or lose. I mean, you care, but you're like, it's not as like deal breaking as like that state championship game. So it's a lot less stress in club to me. So.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, James, what we're doing is the extent possible using JOs is kind of our North Star, right? And so every September or so when we get back in the pool, even though it's 9 months away, we're really kind of aiming towards that. And we know that like eventually you are, at least for us, our kind of a kids group are kind of bifurcate on who's really oriented towards that and who's not. And practices kind of break up along that way with practice groups. But it helps for us to do that kind of long-term planning to say this year it's about, and we know as a club, look, this is going to be a good 16 boys or a good 18 girls for us or not, and so we use that as kind of a planning mechanism to try to long-term plan into that. This year would have been a good 14-year, boys for us, but it's not going to happen. So we're kind of reloading for next year. And that with the same with you, that with your club, like where are we going to have strengths? And if you can use that, you at least have kind of a little bit of a long-term arc you can plan against. It doesn't work for all of our kids because we have, that we call Badger Ball, the splash ball kids and all that sort of thing. But it helps at least for those, kind of top end competitive kids to use that as our guiding, kind of our guideline.
Yeah, James, I'll chime in. I'm in St. Louis as well, and we just started a new club, but focused on girls, no boys.
Oh, good. I'm very happy to hear that, actually.
Yeah, and it's, and we haven't even gotten in the water yet. We're still about 2 weeks to go before we can get in some water. But the club, and again, in Missouri, and Miguel said that, water polo for both genders is in the spring, right? But for girls, our high school swim is winter. So, and other states do it differently, like Illinois does swims girls in the fall. So for us, we basically have 2 parts of a club season. We have fall and then we have summer. So spread apart, right? Kind of 6 months apart. And it's all development all the time. We're going to play 1 tournament in October and that's it. But, the interest is very high here for girls, which is great. And these are girls that usually didn't have an interest in playing hybrid or mixed, which they can do, and we've done for quite some time in Missouri at the high school level. There's a few girls that can do that and are really good at it, but we're finding that the vast majority of girls would rather play all girls. That's one dynamic going on here, and so we're giving them an opportunity to do so, right? And we have 13-year-olds, we've got 18-year-olds, and everywhere in between. So it's all development and skill building and understanding the game. We've got some kids that are, gold level athletes in USA and others that really don't know what they're doing. So it's a big mix, but developing the sport so they can go play, because Missouri, actually, we had a girls league, 6 high schools for the first time to play all girls in this spring. And then that got shut down, in mid-March.
Yeah.
You said it's the extended.
That was disappointing. Yeah.
So they never got a chance to compete. But our club is much more about development and learning the game and understanding the game, getting to the next level, and then take those skills and go apply it in your high school season where, you're playing 15, 20 games plus playoffs. And, that's the way you get your competition. Now, in years to come, sure, maybe we'll send girls to the JLs, who knows? But for right now, it's all development all the time.
All right, I've been handed the responsibility of hosting this thing and I have to actually run. So unless there's something else in the next 2 minutes or so, then I think we'll call it a day. And thank you very much, Chris.
Oh, yes. Thanks for all the
Thanks,
questions
Chris.
and feedback. I appreciate it. So
Thank you, Chris.
y'all have a good afternoon. So
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris. Appreciate it.
you're welcome.
That was a lot of good stuff. Sorry, I had people walk in my office, so I went dark.
No trouble.
I still had it on.
No trouble.
All right.
All right. Thanks.
You bet. Bye.
Bye.